What is up, you amazing people? It's Nima here, and today we got an interesting episode for you. So I'm going to be reviewing a game called Fortune's Favor. This game was created by one guy, a solo dev, an indie dev. And while I was reviewing this game, there happened to be an article that I read about how the indie world and indie games and the developers are deprofessionalizing gaming. And what's interesting about this episode is I actually talked to the developer of Fortune's Favor about this exact article. But we'll get to all of that in the, say, second half of the video. I really want to lead off with the game because that's what was asked of me, and I think that's the most important thing to focus on. So Fortune's Favor is an open-world action-adventure game with a real emphasis on crafting. As the game starts, you start off as the captain of your very own pirate ship, your own crew. Although this is quickly short-lived because you're about to be mutinied, and yes, you are forced to walk the plank, and you are left on Mutiny Island, where you sort of island hop for a little while, getting as far as you can while swimming. You do have a stamina gauge, so you're only allowed to swim so far before you just can't make it anymore. But while you're on this island, you're really looking for a way to create some sort of raft or a ship or something to get you off of Mutiny Island. At the same time, you do run into a few other pirates that does cause a little bit of an issue, but it's really not much more than you can handle. And the nice thing about these pirates is once they're defeated, they will often give you weapons, which will help you also take on some of the animals in the area. As I remember, right, there were a significant amount to just get you going into the game and kind of showing you the combat. But very, very early on, as you're exploring, you will be able to find enough necessary materials, which I believe is rope and nails, to create a temporary raft. You can hop into this raft and you pretty much have open exploration. You can go wherever you want. The best thing to do, in my opinion, is actually go after another ship. Do what comes naturally to you. Be a pirate. And once you're able to take that ship on, you will actually claim some prisoners out of that. 1 to 2, depending on how many people are on that ship. These people can later become like your own pirate gang as you're slowly starting to rebuild your once great empire. Okay, well, that's a bit hyperbolic. You didn't have a great empire, but you really did have a pretty awesome setup. And so throughout this game, you find this loop where you will go on these sort of hunts where you're trying to just get as many items as you can for crafting and things of that nature. And then you'll go for, well, pirating and trying to take down other ships to gain money, weapons, crew, all of that stuff that pirates love to have. And I think ultimately all of us love to have. But what I found most interesting about this game, or I should say the most fun about this game, wasn't actually the idea of revenge and taking back my crew, making the new captain pay for what he's done to me. None of that really kept me that engaged. It was a cool idea, don't get me wrong, and I enjoy that overarching story, but the thing that really kept me locked into the game was the exploration. You see, at the outside of this game, it looks kind of simplistic, if I'm being honest, but the more you sort of explore these different islands, you find a lot more to them. Like, one of the most notable things that I remember doing, especially early on, was actually hunting down these, like, snake witches. I can't remember their name exactly, but you will come to this island where there is a gigantic snake witch creature, and you have to defeat her to get her tongue. It's part of the side quest. It's just really crazy, and early on, really difficult, but also it kept me going back and ultimately wanting to explore the other islands to find out what else was on there. You see, I didn't really think that there was going to be a bunch of crazy creatures in this game. I thought it was just more pirates and whatever. Maybe like some outraged animals or something, but I didn't really think there would be like mystical creatures. And so exploring these other islands and just having that idea of wondering what's next is really what kept me addicted to this game. So I really enjoyed it. There is a lot to like here. Of course, it's an indie game. There's going to be some issues with it and a bit of a learning curve. Like when it comes to the crafting, combining items, it makes sense once you do it, but it really kind of takes a little bit of a repetition before you completely are comfortable with it. At least that was my experience. And even like direction. And not always knowing which way to go or what to do can be an issue. At least for me it was, especially in the early on. But once I kind of figured out the loop it was really just simple to figure out what to do and how to go about doing it. There's not really a right or wrong way. But that's my opinion on Fortune's Favor. I definitely recommend checking it out, not only because it's a fun game, but also because you are supporting a solo dev who truly cares about his project and in fact already updated it, giving it a well-needed patch, and he's even talked about potentially doing a sequel to the game. Okay, so on to this article that I was talking about, and for any references, I will have a link to the article in the description and actually the full transcript of my interview. They had some really interesting things to say about shovelware and even the use of AI that I think is really valuable and spot on, and also some questions that I've had regarding the game industry and indie developers and the gatekeeping that goes on. And so there's a lot of interesting stuff down there. I'll have the full transcript in the description of this video. Anyway, to summarize this article I was reading about, it was essentially almost lamenting the fact that many smaller studios are actually requiring their workers to do multiple jobs, and what this does is sort of force certain specialists out. The ones that they were talking about specifically were like the artists and musicians, those who really specialize in those things and do them really well. So I asked Ilya what their thoughts were on the article themselves, and what they said is the article is largely on point, but whether this shift is a good or a bad thing really comes down to your perspective. AAA and mid-sized studios are definitely feeling the pressure big time, but with consumer taste and development tools changing so fast, some shakeups were inevitable. The industry and traditional business models have grown bloated and needed to adapt. And now everyone from solo developers to specialists has to find their place in the new landscape. We are entering a world where pretty much anyone can materialize any form of media or entertainment, but I think this was inevitable given the state of technology and its trajectory. The one constant thing in life is change, and I largely agree with them on this, and I will say that any job I've ever had has always been at the threat of redundancy in some form or another. Whether it be AI computers or even just a faster process, it can be any job, like I said, that I have has always been like, well, things are going to change. We're going to be able to get more done with less people. And I think that that's just another aspect of technology in general. But also look at a game like Expedition 33, where these are people who worked for Ubisoft. Ubisoft, they make some, well, not great games. And yet they were bored, essentially, so they created this side project that is one of the greatest RPGs we've had in a very long time. And they just did it because, they wanted something fun to do, essentially. And I think that speaks more to not size of a team, even though this was a smaller team, but like their limitations and what late stage capitalism has sort of done to gaming in general. And you can see even this narrative of, well, we need to cut down our teams, have people do multiple jobs. It is through the eyes of capitalism. And when your only tool is a hammer, everything becomes a nail, essentially. And so instead of focusing on the aspect of, hey, maybe we should actually be trusting our creative teams a little bit more, that I think is the real story. Whether it be a small team, a big team, or whatever, following their direction in many ways is the actual point. But I feel that even if like Sony had somebody like Toby Fox leading one of their teams, they would still try to get him to make like a live service game. And then went on to ask Ilya about animosity towards indie creators in the industry. They said, absolutely, game development has more gatekeepers than almost any creative field I've seen. Many professionals won't share their playbooks or collaborate outside of their own circles. If you don't fit in certain social or ideological norms, you can quickly get shunned or quietly blacklisted. It's a dog-eat-dog world where people tend to guard their success rather than lift others up. That said, this is just a general observation. I then went on to ask them about AI use. And I know this is a hot button topic, so I'm also going to say that I also use AI, but not in ways that many people would think. And I also love the use of AI when it comes to presidents playing video games. If you haven't seen that, you should totally watch it. It's hilarious. But no, I use AI to edit my audio. It's a very taxing job to do on my own, and it really makes almost no difference to you guys, but cuts production time down by a lot. So anyway, here's what Ilya had to say about AI use. Yes, I use AI and I have no problem with it at all. I released and ported games, music, and art before AI existed, and now I use it in parts of my workflow. Not because I want to, but because it helps with things that I can't quite nail down. Mostly that means code fixes and 2D art tasks such as icons or textiles. And though some of the music for Fortune's Favor was actually remastered using AI, That said, I created those original tracks myself anyway, so I was remastering my own music. I won't receive funding, I don't have a network of creators, and I lack the resources or time to hire specialists, so I handle everything myself using whatever tools are available. I don't feel guilty using AI, since I already had the skills to release commercial games, music, and art before it became an option. In my personal experience, the loudest AI critics tend to be hyper specialists who haven't shipped a product and see it as a threat rather than a tool. I see AI as just that, another tool that helps me deliver the best product I can within my constraints. Watching my kid grow up with the use of AI has also warmed me to it because it gives kids new ways to build and explore their imagination. Honestly, I don't think we can even comprehend what media will look like in just a few years. And I really just thought that that was an interesting conversation that we had. And also remember, Ilya created Frowntown, one of my favorite indie games from the last generation. If you haven't played Frowntown, you should totally be getting Frowntown. It's a really awesome game. But I will also have the link to their website down below, link to the original article, and of course the transcript of the interview that I had with Ilya. Anyway, thank you guys so much for checking out this episode. I know it's a little bit different than normal, but I don't know, I just felt like I really was interested in this topic, and I really wanted to get the input of someone who's very talented in that world and deals with this stuff every day. But anyway, that's just my thoughts. Please check out Fortune's Favor. It is a really fun game, as well as Frowntown, and another game that I'm going to be reviewing that Ilya also created. I'll be doing that in the next few days or so. So watch out for that. Got a lot of stuff coming up. Anyway, I love each and every one of you guys. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.